Wow, what a difference. The Talkbuster Podcast. Hi, I'm Chris Chipman. You may remember me from such podcasts as the Chipman Brothers Tangent and Creating Geeks, a parenting podcast of great responsibility. I'm here to bring you back to the late 90s, early 2000s, a time of Amrays and clamshells, a time of late fees and VHS tapes being replaced by DVDs, a time of stale gumballs and overpriced candy. Yes, that's right. I am talking about the time of Blockbuster Video, the Walmart of the video rental industry, the mom-and-pop video store killer, the corporate big choice video store that everybody loved to hate. Blockbuster is mostly gone now. Kids today will never know the crazy Friday and Saturday nights with lines wrapped around the store to rent the next big movie. No more will regulars who are in the know arrive at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays to snatch up the new rentals that week before the weekend rush. Most of all, no longer will young movie geeks like myself have the memories I, and many others like me, made while working there. You see, under all of the corporate evil and bad practices, Blockbuster was a home, a comfort, a place where I made lifelong friends and even met my wife. It is because of these memories that I, and I'm sure many of you, have, that the Talkbuster podcast was created. A place for me and others to share our memories of what once was, of the before time, of the long, long ago. I'm looking forward to see where this goes, how it evolves. Join me, won't you?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Talkbuster Podcast, one of only 4 shows on the internet where I, Chris Chipman, aka the Chippa, talk to random people instead of talking to my brother, which you get from the Chipman Brothers Tangent. But the Talkbuster Podcast is my favorite thing that I do. A little bit of housekeeping before I introduce my guest. On my Patreon, I now have tiers. If you're in the $15 tier, I'm going to say your name on my show. So Mason, Christopher Finnick, Patricia Chipman, my mother, hey mom, and Hugh K. Campbell Jr., who was a guest on the Talkbuster podcast. He goes as Green Goblin on Twitter. Are my 4 patrons of the $15 or more vein. So I really appreciate those guys. As far as advertisements go, this show, like a lot of my shows, are brought to you by the Geeks with Shields podcast. Those are my friends. I've been on their show a few times. Your home for all things good and nerdy, and this is the darkest timeline. Go check those guys out. They're fantastic. Okay, so with me tonight is the creator of the Remembering Blue and Gold Facebook page, Remembering Blue and Gold Blockbuster. You can check that page out. It's where I got a bunch of guests for this show, and I've really been enjoying it and enjoying the community building. So my guest tonight is Alvie Taylor. Please introduce yourself, good sir.
Hey, Chris. I'm Alvie Taylor. I don't know what y'all want to know about me. I love Blockbuster. I started out as a part-time CSR and just kind of worked my way up through the company. Probably my favorite job, absolutely my favorite job ever had. And I also had the opportunity to work for the Walt Disney Company as well.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. My favorite, is the people, man. The people I met. So there you go.
Yeah, we can get into that for sure, because I feel the same way. It's why I did this. You know, I get people on, and it's so cool to hear all of us have that exact same reaction to the place. You know, I haven't had a person on here yet that was like, oh my God, it was the worst job I ever had, and they want to come on and like make fun of the company. It's like, no. For the employees, it was just this great, odd time, you know, in retail history that, you know, we got to kind of get together and share this love for a product that we really enjoyed. And since the general public ate it up so much and wanted it so much, we just kind of got to live and work in that world and have a great time. And I thought it was great.
Oh, it was amazing. The even movies that I got to experience that I would have never thought to watch had I not worked at Blockbuster. Those little independent ones. I would have never watched Donnie Darko.
Right. Oh my God, that's one of the first ones that pops into my head, because I remember the magazine that we got, the Video Store magazine, was amping that up like long before we got it on the shelf, and I'm like, what is this thing? And I need to see this. Yeah, and it finally came in, and I think everybody that worked there, we all rented a copy and came back in and just mind shattered, right? That was such a wild movie.
It was crazy. Most of the members would have to watch it 2 or 3 times because they really wouldn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, Donnie Darko. That one came out. What was that?
I got one of the movie theater posters for Donnie Darko actually on my wall.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sent me a couple pictures. You have a lot of cool stuff back there. So is it all Blockbuster related memorabilia, or are you kind of in the just cool memorabilia game? Doesn't really matter where it's coming from.
I have a lot of Blockbuster memorabilia for sure. A ton of movie memorabilia, and I'm a huge Star Wars fanatic. So I got tons and tons of Star Wars, but even like my movie posters and stuff, a lot of those come from Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the giant lighted wooden poster marquees that they used to have that would hang from the ceiling? They were like on chains. Do you remember those? Did they have them at your stores?
Well, see, one of my jobs, I got to travel cross country, and we would take those old stores and take all that cool stuff down and make them into the new Blockbuster. So I got to see about every footprint that we ever had within our company's history.
That's so cool. My buddy Steve, when they were hauling those out and replacing them, they let him keep one, and so he had it in his room, with a Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back poster in it. And I always thought that was really cool.
That's awesome. Did you see my great big Blockbuster sign behind me?
I did. It was in a couple of the photos you sent me. And I saw it when the video was on, when this came on. So where'd you get that from? Was that an outdoor, indoor, or was that legit, or did you have that made?
No, it was completely legit. I believe the store was probably design was 1989 design. It had I could be wrong on that, and I'm sure one of my coworkers will correct me if I am. It was one of the designs that had the different actors in the circles all the way around. So it's an interior sign.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It takes about 32 light bulbs, and it works, and it'll sparkle and everything in the back. And we was just going to throw it away when we went to remodel a store. So I brought it to my house.
That's so cool. And you've had it ever since.
I have. I've had it for years. I mean, I don't even know, probably 2003.
Wow, yeah, that sounds about the right time.
Yeah, because that's when we really started changing the stores up.
So when did you start working for the company, Alvie?
I want to say 2000, 2001, something like that.
It's so wild. I'm sure, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to any episodes of the show, but everybody I found outside of, I think, Brett Klein, who had been there a little bit longer, who I just started, he was like mid-90s. It's always those same years. Doesn't matter how old or how young. I started in around the year 2000. I'm like, oh shit, well, I started in 2000. I was 17, but I worked from there from 2000 to 2008 at various different stores. I was a store manager at one point. It was nuts. I was a store manager at like 19. This is kind of wild. I was the assistant store manager, and my store manager broke his knee, and they promoted me, so I ran a store for 6 months.
That's how a lot of people got promoted at Blockbuster in the stores. Their store manager got hurt.
Oh yeah. So you said you started right down at the bottom as a CSR. So where was this? What state? What city?
Dallas, Texas. It was actually, I lived in Carrollton, Texas. I was renting movies all the time, and a guy by the name of Joe signed me up for the rewards program. And that just got me in the store even more. And my little brother told me, he says, hey, man, instead of spending all that money, he said, why don't you go down there and get a job? I asked that guy. He said, you get 5 free rentals a week, and you even get them before they come out. And I'm like, all right, I'll do that. And I went and applied. Sal was the manager. It was crazy because I'd pierced my ears, and I was like old school. Like if you go to a job interview, you take your earrings out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's fresh. So I go in here, and this guy barely looks at my application. And he looks at what I was making at my other jobs. And he said, well, I can't hire you. I said, excuse me? He said, I can't hire you. I go, why is that? He said, well, you won't stay. I can't pay you what you was making at your other jobs. I said, excuse me? I said, did you not read my application before I came in here? He goes, yeah, I guess I didn't see that. He said, that figures. I said, that figures. He looks at me kind of strange. I said, look, man, I didn't think I was going to get paid no $20 an hour to slide movies across the counter. Because, you know, in my mind, that's all a Blockbuster employee did at the time. Slide movies across the counter. I was wrong on that one.
Oh, yeah.
I said, thank you for wasting my time. And I turned around and walked out of the store. And before I got out of the parking lot, one of my friends called and said, hey, Blockbuster's on the phone doing a reference check. And I said, what? I was calling to tell you that there's no way I got that job. And about 15 minutes later, the manager called back and said, hey, Alvie, it's Sal. I was wondering when you can come down and fill out your paperwork. I said, I got the job. He said, yeah. He said, I like someone like you. He said, you'll tell me exactly what you think. So that's when I got hired at Blockbuster.
Nice. And
yes.
so and so how was that? How was working in that store? You know, how long were you a CSR? How was Sal to like work for?
I actually worked for Sal as a part-time CSR, a full-time CSR, a shift leader, and an assistant store manager.
Nice.
He inadvertently gave me lots of opportunities because he would allow me to learn his job, and I was good at his job. And I got hurt at Blockbuster, and he messed up and was like bugging me to come back to work. Like, and I know I was on workers' comp, could barely move, saying he's going to take me off the schedule and everything. And so I called HR, and they transferred me out of his store when I came back. It was kind of cool, though, because all of our stores were probably within 3 miles of each other in the area I was in. And as I would move stores, they would lose about 300 to 350 members because the stores were so close. So the members would follow me around. I had a district manager that told me that I ruin store managers as an assistant manager because I do their job for them. You know that a lot of people don't know this, but probably my biggest inspiration at Blockbuster was Sal, and not for the reason most people think. At some point early on, I was asking him why we were doing things, and that bugged him that I'd ask why. So he called me outside, and he pointed up to the sign, and he says, "What does that say?" And I said, "What?" And he pointed up to the Blockbuster sign, and he says, "What does it say?" I said, "It says Blockbuster Video." He says, "Well, when it says Alvie or Sal's Video, then you can decide what to do." So from that day forward, I decided that's what I was going to do. That I was going to eventually tell him what to do and then to decide what to do for that company. And that's what I did.
That's an awesome, damn. I like this because it's I never got to move past that store manager level, but you make a lot of really good points. I feel like there were a lot of people in that company above where I was working that wanted to hear somebody with thoughts and input like yours, you know, and taking that approach, you know, who knows, right? Who knows if there weren't more people higher up that kind of had that outlook, if the company wouldn't still be doing better, you know? That's kind of cool.
There was a lot of people that I worked with in the corporate office that definitely loved the company just as much as I did. I was lucky enough to have that field experience, as they would call it. I'd always call it store experience. With that corporate world, that benefited as we was trying to change the company. I was unschooled going up to the corporate office. All I knew is I loved Blockbuster, and in my mind, I wasn't going to be one of those people that forgot where they came from.
Right, exactly.
So it was really cool, but I'm going to tell you, there was a lot of people working right beside me that loved this company. I got to do some amazing things over the years. They actually, it's funny because you said they actually forced me to go to the corporate office. I didn't have a choice.
Huh.
Yeah, I ran the number one store in the company, which was the model store. So I didn't have a choice but to do that. And I wanted a promotion to district manager. I was already helping my district manager, but I wanted a promotion. And my RDO, John Capizzola, called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to take you to lunch." So he took me to lunch, and he said, "Look, they're not going to let me promote you." I go, "What are you talking about?" He go, "They are not going to let me promote you." I said, "Who is it?" He said, "The people at the corporate office." I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, they want you to come work for them." My immediate response was, "I do not want to work for them. I want to be a district manager. And if I can't be a district manager, I want to go to Florida, like I told you I wanted to do when you took over this region." He goes, "I don't have a choice." He says, "Now, what we can do," he goes, "I'll make up a position for you to do what you're doing now. And we'll go from there." He goes, "Or you just go up there, stay there for 6 months and come back." I went, "Okay." So I was sorry. I was having a memory there.
It's all right.
Yeah. That I didn't realize what opportunity it actually was that I was being forced into, because I actually got to create the Rock the Block stores, work on them like real life. Kind of really understand what Jim's vision was for the company.
Wow. Yeah. Give me some more insight about that, because I only have a passing knowledge of the Rock the Block store and all that.
Jim wanted to transform the way everybody's seen our image and what we could do, almost like a 7-Eleven type of thing, but kind of be all inclusive for stock, where you could come in and get the latest TV, tub of popcorn or soda, and have up-to-date technology gadgets that other people didn't have.
Right.
Kind of like that hangout environment. We did that. We spent a lot of money building those stores. Some of the things worked, some of them didn't. I don't believe everybody fully understood his vision, and that hurt the company overall. Man, I spent a lot of money on Rock the Block, and sometimes, especially towards the end, I would be, oh my gosh, if I could get that money back. But towards the end, the Reno market and other select stores actually is what helped keep the company floating a lot. We would throw product to be able to boost their sales up. And
wow.
Then, yeah.
And when was that was happening? Was that?
Man, Blu-ray players had just came out.
Right. So that's the upper 2000s. So like 2008, 9, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's when our when our trouble was like, it was pretty bad. We was all in a meeting, and you know what's crazy? That I'm so used to having to keep my mouth shut about this stuff that it's crazy to be able to talk about it in the opening.
I appreciate that because it's given me a background I didn't know about. That's the thing I like the most about this show is I'm learning all this stuff, and it's like this isn't written down somewhere. You know, you got to talk to the people that lived it.
You're probably going to want to talk to me again.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, I'll get more comfortable talking about this because it could used to get me thrown in jail.
Right, of course.
Yeah. So I'm just not used to talking about it. We had a man. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you lots of stories about that, but yeah, we actually during that time, I want to say Doug McHose was our operation vice president. So he'd be the person talking to the stores every week.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was pretty bad. They did massive layoffs at the corporate office to the point where most of us was doing 6 other people's jobs.
Ugh.
Yeah, and it was no joke. And they would tell us. They actually had tennis balls, and they threw tennis balls at us, told us to pick up as many as we could. And the point of that was, okay, now with all these people going, we're going to have a lot of different things thrown at us. We fully realize that we're not going to be able to catch all the balls. So catch what you can and help out.
Damn.
Yeah, man. But anyway, during that time period, we needed to get some revenue in the company. So investors needed to see a certain number of retail and rental mix. And that was one of the things I was tasked to do because the Reno market was an entire Rock the Block market. So we could pretty much do what we wanted to in that market. And so we sent them, I want to say 3 truckloads of returns that had been returned to the warehouse. And basically gave the stuff away out of that back of the diesels. We were selling Blu-ray players for $50. The same Blu-ray players the rest of you guys were selling for $500. They were selling for $50 because the box was open.
Yep.
Yeah, it was insane. So anything y'all sent back, they were actually basically giving it away out of the back of diesels, because all we did is unload the pallets and they just had to sell it. We rented them a tent and they went for it.
Holy
To the
shit.
point, yeah, it was insane, man. To the point, my boss called me in. I don't know, I can't remember how many days into it. It might have been 3 or 4 days into it. He called me in and said we had a problem. And I said, what? He said, have you ran the numbers today? And I was like, no. He said, retail is far exceeding rental. We got to do something.
Whoops.
And I'm like, well, I was mad because in that meeting, I knew this was going to happen. It was my job to know that. So I wanted to turn on the movie pass, because that would, I wanted to turn on the $14.99 movie pass.
Oh, yeah.
Right, because that would get the rental numbers up.
Absolutely.
Jim would not let us turn on the $14.99 movie pass.
Really?
Guess what? Yeah, guess what got turned on after those numbers? That movie pass got turned on when those numbers come out, because we had to balance out the rental and retail. So, but I will tell you right now, the craziest thing about Rock the Block, they let me go and spend all this money updating these stores. And Reno had them all. They had an electronics store. They had a game concept store. They had a beverage store. They had a multi-concept store. Kind of all of that. But Jim would cut our advertising budget every time. So here we had all these new stores, this brand new TVs and products that the country hadn't never seen, but we're not even allowed to tell people about it. It was only at the end did he give us advertising dollars to put billboards up. But once again, it was to achieve a number a little too late. I think we spent like $10 million remodeling the Reno market, and we're supposed to get advertising dollars for that market. That's why we chose Reno, so we could advertise the concept. Otherwise, we would have cherry picked the stores that we wanted to do the concepts in.
Right.
He didn't let us do that. He thought he did really good turnaround 7-Eleven, and he thought the brand awareness and telling people we changed would draw the customers back in. It was crazy, because when I got to the corporate office, what I found out quickly is there was a big disconnect from the corporate office from the stores on basic customer service, like credits. Now, Chris, you know, as a store manager, what is your district manager always getting on to you about?
Oh, yeah.
Credits. You got to keep those credits down.
Yep. As soon as you said the word, I shuddered a little bit.
Right. Like everything. And I remember as a CSR, my store manager high-fiving me when I collected a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of not putting it off. And like how I should, like sometimes I knew I probably should have gave a credit, but my store manager's going to yell at me the next day. So it's like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. When you get up to the corporate office, they're truly under the belief that we'll put off that balance if it pops up there every time. In fact, they think we're offering to put off that balance.
Oh, really?
Absolutely, man. They're shocked.
They're shocked.
They're shocked.
That is a crazy disconnect.
When I told them the story about getting high five for getting the credit, I mean, you should have
Not
seen.
knowing the environment that they created or allowed to happen. That's crazy.
Here was the problem.
Because that was extremely common. That wasn't like, I mean, the fact that you and I both have that story, like I know full well that happened. Do you know what I mean? They'd come over and be like, "Oh, absolutely great job, not taking off that balance." You're like, "Wait a minute, what?"
Right, all
I mean,
across,
I
yeah, all across the country it happened.
oh boy.
And the biggest disconnect, and I will apologize to all the vice presidents and regional directors because when y'all listen, y'all taught me so much. But here's the truth. The biggest disconnect between the corporate office and the stores was the vice presidents and the regional director of operations. And it was because the expectations that was put on them and how they interpreted that in the amount of right. So, Paul Stevenson was being held accountable for credits.
So how do I deal with that? I just tell them that as a store manager and as district managers or whatever, you need to tell people they're doing a good job for not doing credits. And then all of a sudden that becomes, like corporate environment. This is what we do. You don't take off those fees. You make them pay right now.
In fact,
and all of a sudden customer service is turned on its head because now the customer isn't always right. The customer is being taken for a ride.
Every time.
Every time.
I actually said I was in a meeting one day. I don't know if Jim will remember this or not. And Des asking me how come we haven't sold any TVs in the stores. And man, it was a good question. I understand why the question was because we had the first 3D TV in the United States.
Ever. I remember.
Yeah. Like that was in one of my Rock the Block stores in Dallas. And
I remember hearing that. I remember going into Blockbusters after I worked there because about the time I left was when all of this Viacom dropped them and all this stuff started happening with the type of stores you're talking about. So this is a great background here. And I remember walking in and seeing like t-shirts and TVs and Blu-ray players for sale, and I'm like, it's like, I guess this makes sense. This was inevitable. But I just don't know if a guy coming in on a Friday night to rent Transformers Revenge of the Fallen is gonna want to buy a big TV.
Well, they would, and I was mad this day, man, because I would have to account for these store sales all the time.
Yeah.
To everybody, because product wants to know why my stores are not selling their product. Yeah, and not just product. Confection wants to know. All of those people are different. You got a group of people that bought the candy and soda for us. You got a different person that bought the electronics, a different one that bought the games. And, they got bosses they answer to, and we're all working on the CEO's pet project.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so, you had numbers, and I'm mad. This meeting's about in the middle of the day, and Jim goes, well, Alvie, how come we haven't sold any TVs? And I'm bipolar, so that probably didn't help in this case. I looked up in my most sarcastic. I said, I don't know, Jim. Maybe because the same people that hadn't been able to get a movie checked in on time the past 20 years are the ones trying to sell them a $4,000 TV and tell them to trust them.
I hope you can hear me applauding.
I did.
Good for you. Good for you.
That one of my issues when I got to the corporate office is that I was not very schooled on, how to say things politely or, handle things in the corporate world. And I learned that over time. But probably the last year there, and especially the last 6 months there, man, I didn't have time for the copy
pleasantries.
Yeah, I didn't have time to copy everybody and their brother and make sure I get 20 people's approval before I change the candy on a planogram. I just go, hey, we're not going to have jobs to make sure all of us approve of this in a few months if we don't figure us out.
Oh, that's awesome.
But everybody that I worked with up there, man, everybody that I worked with up there loved this company. And I know that's hard to believe, but because I had a different impression of people at the corporate office until I was forced to work with them at my store. As store manager, I had the regional office store. It was store 48002. It was the second store Blockbuster opened.
Nice. I was the store manager of the regional Northeast Massachusetts store in Woburn. That was 25026.
Nice. Okay. So, imagine having the regional office pressure, and then the corporate office, I believe, was like 7 miles up the street.
Yep. I think Brett Klein, who I talked to, was the store manager of the store that was in the downstairs of the corporate office.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Well, see,
and it was wild because he was only open 5 days a week. They ran banker's hours at that store. That doesn't even make any sense to me with a Blockbuster. But it makes sense where it is. But
well, yeah, I mean there is restaurants and everything in Renaissance Tower, where our office building was. They didn't get to do a lot of crazy stuff at his store because it was smaller than the average Blockbuster.
Right.
But it was, yeah, man, that was a cool store that they had there too.
So regional office.
Oh, that's where I left off. Oh yeah, the regional office.
Yeah, I took you off on a tangent there. Sorry.
I don't even know what we was talking about actually.
You said you were there in the regional office, and then I had said, "Oh, I was the regional office store around here," and you were comparing it to, okay, think about having the pressure of a regional office, but then you got the corporate office 7 miles away, and that's where we were.
Okay, perfect. Oh yeah, I got you now. Oh yeah, they would come down all the time when I first started to be a store manager. Merchandising, Dana Eldridge and Brian Morrow would come to my store, and it was tough because my store was, I would tell you, is near perfect, and it almost was. Like you couldn't find dust hardly anywhere, and if you did, we got it dusty. So I was one of those managers, and here these people are coming in, and I really thought that these people coming in here touching my store. So Dana and Brian worked out this pretty good system where Dana would be over telling me all the good stuff that was going to happen and why they was doing it, while Brian was over doing it to my store. And then they take me over and show it to me. So I learned to work with them really well. Those two right there. All three of us, like, I was friends with them even before I moved to the corporate office because of that. And then as my store would get selected for visits and stuff, I'd have to intermingle with different people in the corporate office, like different departments, whether it's product, merchandising a lot, visual merchandising a lot. When they selected my store for the model store, you was gone by then. I know all the poor employees will love to know this. My store was the model store, which means we had a checklist. Man, it seemed like 25 pages long from everything from pulling grass out of the parking lot, out of everything. It was the model. It was the perfect store where everything was labeled and everything. Once they selected my store, that my life as a normal Blockbuster manager was pretty much over.
Yeah.
Because they actually developed those standards in my store over, I want to say, 2-week period, 3-week period. I can't really remember on the date. I know there's people out there that will, and we had to clean everything I'm talking about. And they would come out. Brian Bevins, the VP at the time, would come out and do a visit, and we'd have to redo it. So I was working with different people from the corporate office almost every day because kind of how the corporate office, no, this is how the corporate office works. The people that worked in operations, which pretty much controlled the communications out to the stores and wrote the program guides and things like that, every single one of them come from a store when I was up there. And they cared and loved about the stores. But what would happen when one of us would get a project that involved a store, the rest of us would go help do that store. Because, it's a lot of work flipping a store and putting all these new things in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The model store, I can't remember how many hours we spent to make it that way. The checklist alone, me and Michelle spent, seemed like 8 hours on. Michelle was a lady at the corporate office who was the original contact from a model store. She would eventually be my boss when I got promoted to the corporate office after this.
Wow.
But yeah, I got kind of cocky when I got the model store because they brought these matrix in, and I want to say my store was ranked like 3,100 or something like that. And my regional director showing me all these matrix, and he says, well, he said, we gave you the perfect store, new uniforms. He's covering everything he's did for me. And he's laughing because he knows I've worked from like open to close or open to whenever for how many days. He says, so you got one other thing. I go, okay. He hands me paper. I go, what's that? He said, these are the rankings. Here's where you're currently ranked. I said, okay. He says, well, you got to be the number one. I said, in what category? Because I think was getting ranked on like 32 different things at the time. He says, what do you mean, which one? I said, which ones do I need to be number one in? He said, all 32 of them. He said, if you have the model store, you should be number one on all 32. I said, oh, okay. How many days do I got to do this in? He said, 30. Well, a few things presented a problem. I was a district training store. So my modules on my computer were never where they needed to be to rank high on that.
Yep.
Yes, never. So like my store employees had been there so long, they were there, a lot of them there when that's funny, my assistant manager when I was a store manager actually trained me as a shift lead. Shout out to Hugh Ward. I love it, man. Like, for real, like best assistant manager I ever had. Awesome. Him and I are still friends. Sorry.
That's
see,
awesome.
I got sidetracked. So
that's okay, dude. I'm loving this. Are you kidding me? This is great.
That's what I can talk about Blockbuster all the time. So I said, how many days? Said 30. And here was what one of the main problems was. he had been letting me use all the labor I wanted to get the store up. Well, guess what one of the rankings were? My labor. Yeah, my labor matrix. So we had to come up with a way to get me more labor from the corporate office. So we figured that out. I got spoiled because Brian Bevins loved what we did to the store, and I made a really good impression on a lot of visitors that he had. So I was kind of cocky, to say the least. And so I don't know, as a store manager, when you called store support services, would they just send you new shelving if you ask for it?
Yeah.
Chris? Yeah.
What was that?
I said, if you called store support, would they? Sorry. I was like, I got spoiled. I was like, as a store manager, when you called store support, could you like have them send you a fixture?
No. You had to get like 80 people to approve it, and then they'd have to come out and verify that the one you had was actually broken. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
It took forever.
How about a sign? That's the one I couldn't. Could you get a sign?
No.
No. Your district manager had to order the signs, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That was my life forever until this happened to me, because Brian Bevins told me this changed my Blockbuster career forever. Alvie, whatever you need or want for your store, you call them up and tell them I said give it to you. I said, okay. And I took full advantage of that. And they would deliver me stuff out from the office that I would order. And I was kind of a jackass, man. Because, store support pretty much kept the same people. And so they'd get to know me and my store number. So when I'd call up there, I wouldn't have to go through all this hassle just to get approval for something I already had permission to get.
Yep.
And my little spoiled jackass's mind. So I call up one day. The guy goes, store support, this is Derek. And I gave my name, store code. I think I was wanting some POP. And I'd been there probably 14 hours the day before. Already been there 12 hours that day. And this has been going on for, good 10 or 11 days. So I was tired and didn't have time for like bullshit, basically. And he goes, well, we're going to have to get permission for that. What you need to do is you need to call your district manager. I said, no. I said, I'm allowed to order it through here. He goes, no, we're not even able to order POP from there. I said, well, I know you can. He goes, well, no. I said, and here, it's unbelievable. So I tell this guy, I said, I got an idea. How about you get on that computer, type in my store code, and see what pops up. I said, and if that doesn't help you, I said, turn around in your chair and ask anyone up there. I said, because I promise you that my POP will be overnighted to me tonight. And he put me on hold. He come back. He goes, okay, yep, we'll have it out there to you tomorrow night. And it was crazy because when I went to the corporate office, me and Derek become best friends. And that was the guy I'd smarted off to on the phone.
Of course. That's
Yeah.
how it works.
It was great. I mean, we was inseparable. I mean, Derek and I was best friends.
That's awesome.
Yeah. A couple of other interesting things happened at that little store. Antiocho was gone, or there was rumors gone or something like that. And they would routinely send people from the corporate office to do training days in my store.
Mm-hmm.
but they wouldn't pick them from like the operations department because, you know, those people was usually out working in the store. So they was either like from product, you know, different departments within the company that really wouldn't have any current store experience, even though a lot of them worked in the store as well. And so they tend to act a certain way, you know, when they're out there. And they ask basically the same questions. You know, if they're at product, I can pretty much tell you what product line they're over because that's what all their questions would refer to. So this man came, he's an older man, and I was told he is from the corporate office, going to work in product. He's very friendly. He didn't wear a tie. The button-up shirt and they told me he'd be spending some time here training with me, doing his field time, learning about the different products. So my first clue is when he asked me what his schedule was going to be. And I'm like, well, you tell me when you want to work. Because, you know, that's how, when you come from the corporate office, that's usually how it worked, is when they were available to come to a shift during their job duty, they would come down here. So he goes, no, I want to work all your shifts. I'm like, man, you don't understand. I work a lot of hours. He says, I know, I want to work them. He said, if I get tired, I'll let you know.
Damn.
So he's doing this with me. I said, this is a dedicated corporate guy. Well, about the middle of day 2, we're back there at our wonderful POS system back in the manager's office.
Oh, yes.
And he is asking all these questions about numbers and different things that, you know, in our POS system, you had to get bored and go back there and actually find this stuff.
Yes.
Because they didn't provide it. Now, this guy's asking about it. And I thought, this is a major red flag. Because this guy's asking about stuff no one in our corporate world asks about, ever. It wasn't even, like, spoken about. Like, the reports, like, per square footage, how much money we were making, you know, in the store level. He couldn't believe we didn't have the breakdown in sodas at store level. And I assured him, I said, I know all those numbers exist. I said, we just don't have them at store level. And I'm like, this is crazy. There's no way this guy is going to be a product buyer. So I go back to the back and I tell my RDO, I go, hey, we need to figure out who this guy is. He goes, why? I said, I said, he's much more knowledgeable than anyone from the corporate office that's ever been here. He's asking questions that a normal person wouldn't ask. And I start telling my RDO, and he goes, yeah. Well, I went back out there. My RDO just told me just to go out and figure it out. I went out there, and by the end of the day, I said, hey, who are you? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you're not a store manager. You're not a product buyer. You don't work in operations. I said, you're asking me questions. Only someone in a different position would ask than what they send down. And come to find out, he was David. David, forgive me for not remembering your last name. Perez starts with a P. He would be our vice president of product, not product. Product, but for like, not like film, corporate office, film, and actual all the other product was 2 different business units.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he'd be the vice president of that as we wrote out Jim's vision. Now keep in mind, Jim's not even there yet. So he told me, he asked me to keep it a secret. I told him I would have to let my RDO know. But I had no problem with that, and I was glad there. I think he stayed like 7 days uh, with me in the store, and he did work every shift that I worked. He took notes. Oh, there's something I remember. He said if you could add one thing to the confection line, what would you add and why? And at this time, vitamin water was catching on
Mm-hmm.
craze, and I said vitamin water. He goes, huh? I said, well, Coke bought it out. I said, so now we can carry it in the store. And I said, they're fixing to market the hell out of it. I said, and it'll sell.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, and it did. It did. But he went up there probably a couple of months, and then we got vitamin water, not in the cooler, but on the warm rack, which was crazy because of our contract with Coke. But it's like it moved to the top of the bestseller list the week they put it out. So that kind of made me feel good and funny about that because David actually listened, and I got to
Yeah.
meet. Yeah, he did, and even when I got to the corporate office, he still listened. He was all about the store. He tried to get us information on the store level that we could have used. Like he couldn't understand why we couldn't order our own candy.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that have been great?
Here's the thing, man. We test stuff like that, and generally regional directors and district managers pick their pretty best store manager or pretty best stores to participate in our test.
Yeah.
If we don't select them, and a bad store manager could get your store pulled off a list or the store manager transferred if that store had to be on it, but that was rare. Uh, you know, stores kind of handled that. So we would test things like this in stores, and it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Like the store manager wouldn't do their job. You know,
Now that's fair. I get that.
and the one of the things I always thought being in the store was, man, have these people ever worked in the store? Do they even know what they're doing? When I got up there and I see how much we had to test stuff and why, I'm like, wow, okay, I get it now. Like sometimes I'd get off the phone calls and go, oh my God, what are we going? This is the best manager we have to do this. And I'm sure they felt like that about me at some point at the corporate
Yeah.
office. Well, yeah. Uh, so we did test ordering your own. Uh, we select very good managers for it. I tell you how bad it was. The beverage stores who our candy company didn't even stock them most of the time. They got their stuff from other places. Great managers. I mean, a lot of these Rock the Block managers was hand selected, like to do these jobs for their skills. They couldn't get the beverage ordering done, much less the candy. So rest assured, we tried that ordering stuff. It just wasn't working out. And then when we started getting low on revenue towards the end, we didn't have the money to buy everything we needed to buy. So stores was getting low. I'll tell you. Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, it's all
Uh,
right.
yeah, so I got to meet someone else in my store, and they spent 2 or 3 days with me. Um, Gentleman come in, he's looking at all the signage. We had a 3 for $9.99 or something like that, all through the BSI section. He come over and asked me my opinion about it, and I said no. I said the consumer don't like it. like I gave him my honest feedback on it, and I'm like, no, it's a bad promotion. Like it just don't work like it's intended. Couldn't find out this guy's Jim Keys.
Nice.
He actually spent 2-3 days with me in my store before we went to the corporate office. Of course, that program ended first day he got up there, and yeah, Jim Keys helped me get my career for sure, because I definitely followed his vision. That it was crazy, man. Towards the end, like I remember times when I first went to the corporate office, people would call me Jim's boy because I believe I didn't care. And if you knew how much I loved Blockbuster, you'd understand that I truly believed in his vision. But I understand why they'd call me Jim's boy, because no matter what, my goal was to sell those Rock the Block stores like for the future. So, and I got what he was trying to do. I really get it. And if we could have did everything he wanted to do, it would have happened. So, I went from being Jim's boy when I first went up there to, I remember, and he's going to hate me for telling this story, but it's true. We got in the elevator with each other, and he wouldn't even talk to me hardly. I would post very vague things on Facebook because, I couldn't say a whole lot, but it was hard because I knew the company was like crashing, and that's not really what was being said, but I wasn't legally allowed to say anything. And he goes, I remember last time he goes, do you really have to post that on Facebook? He goes, can't you put anything positive? I said, I do my best to, man. I go, the company I love and help build is going down the hill. It was very uncomfortable on that elevator ride. They started crafting a social media policy that day because of me.
Oh boy.
I believe the name of the group originally was Remembering Blockbuster Video. That is correct. I'm sorry. So yeah, the name of the group was Remembering Blockbuster Video, and Jim had referenced that to me. Remembering in the library, in the elevator about being negative, and I was letting him know that wasn't the intent to be negative and things like that. So they started crafting a social media policy. Of course, I had to. Legal made me change the Blockbuster, and that's why it went to Remembering the Blue and Gold, because it was okay that way. And then from pretty much at least once a week, it seemed like someone from HR would come down to my office and go over what they was working on the social media policy, and they'd discuss it with me because they's been forced to do it. Sorry, they's been asked to do it by Jim. But these people have known me for a long time, and they've worked for the stores a long time. And you had to have an operations contact on pretty much anything that was going out to a store. So if HR wanted to change something, they had to have someone on the operations team as their contact. Well, by this time, I was HR's contact because we had lost so many project managers that a lot of things, we just did what we could to help the company out. So I was HR's contact. So here they was crafting a social media policy because of me, and I was helping them craft it. It's about which worked out good because they was doing it to use against me, and I knew it. And at the time, the Supreme Court was ruling that we could pretty much say or do whatever we wanted to on Facebook, and they couldn't do anything to us. And I would keep following that, and we had worked back and forth. Uh, oh, Michael, Billy Turner's the one that got sent down there all the time to talk to me about it, and he worked for the company forever. He'd be a great guest for you to have. I bet I could get him.
Yeah, please. Anybody that you can think of, I'd be happy to have him on.
Yeah, I really like, man, because one of the biggest things I learned when I got to the corporate office is, man, they cared more than what we thought they did in the stores.
Yeah, no, that's been the resounding story I've been hearing from everybody that got their feet on that side. So
It was incredible. Yeah.
So
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, so I want to like talk to you for like another hour, but it's 1:30 in the morning for me.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You're cool. You're cool.
No. So my daughter is it's her first day of summer school in the morning. She's 3.5, so it's a good thing. So what I was gonna say is do you want to play that silly movie game I came up with, or do you want to hold it for another time and we'll record again?
Let's record again, man. Hey, I'm
Great.
talking that this is it's why I kind of asked you what you wanted to talk about. I mean, because I was on the transformation team, like even at the end.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to work on so many things within that company. I have lots of stories.
Yeah, let's schedule as soon as possible to do this again.
Okay, I do want to say one thing.
Yeah, please. I was gonna give you a final thing anyway. I wasn't just gonna cut you off right there. So yeah, please go.
Okay, it was about my story because I know I was all over the place with Jim.
That's okay.
I have great respect for that man. Him and I did, obviously, we disagreed on quite a few things, the direction of the company, but even towards the end, like I've said in a post before, him and I kind of went back and forth, and that's a story for another day. When you make a CEO throw his cell phone across the table,
Oh boy,
because your Facebook post popped to his phone. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. There's a problem there. Like and the main problem was, he was trying to save the company that he worked for, and I was trying to save the company I helped build. So we're both under all this tremendous stress, and we're easy targets, and we know there's no good information hardly. And it's negative, and he's wanting me to handle it a different way, and I was wanting him to handle things a different way. And I'm a big mouth. Like I told you before, I didn't know how to keep my mouth closed my first day at the corporate office. That came back out towards the end. But I don't care what anyone else says. I will tell you that guy's vision for this company would have worked if he wouldn't have messed up Total Access. But what he wanted to do in those stores would have worked.
Nice.
Yeah, I do want to say that, but I do want to reschedule with you.
No, not even reschedule. Just continue. Yeah. So
sorry.
No, and so I'll say thank you so much, Alvie, for coming on. And I think we just lost power in half of my house, so I'm gonna go figure out what's going on there. I'm like looking out, and I'm in like a side room, and all the lights just went off.
That's crazy. All right. Well, good luck with that. Thank you so much.
Anyway, no, dude, thank you, and please send me a message with your availability for the next one. So, as always, thank you all for making it a Talkbuster night or day, and thank you for joining Alvie and I in this incredibly in-depth and interesting conversation. And I absolutely loved having you on, man. And please be kind, rewind, everybody. Alvie, have a great night, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, dude, thank you so much. Please, I got to have you back on. This was fantastic.
That's awesome. I'd love to.
All right, bye, man.